Let me be direct with you from the outset because the situation that unfolded at 2:47 a.m. local time in Tel Aviv demands directness. What we witnessed was not a failed interception. It was not a lucky shot that slipped through Israeli defenses. What we witnessed was the operational debut of a weapon system that fundamentally changes the calculus of deterrence in the Middle East, and nobody in the Western media is explaining what actually happened. I am looking at verified footage from multiple sources in Tel Aviv that has been circulating among defense analysts for the past 11 hours. What it shows is not the familiar arc of a ballistic missile being tracked and intercepted. It is not the slow burn of a cruise missile hugging terrain. What it shows is a hypersonic glide vehicle descending at Mach 12, completing terminal phase maneuvers that no existing air defense system was designed to counter and striking its designated target within a 3-meter margin of error. The Iron Dome never had a chance to engage because by the time the radar detected the thermal signature, the missile had already completed its attack sequence. In the next 18 minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly why this represents the most significant shift in Middle Eastern military balance since Israel's nuclear program, why the Iron Dome system is now strategically obsolete against this threat vector, and why your government is not telling you what their own military analysts concluded in the classified briefing delivered to the Israeli War Cabinet at 4:15 a.m. this morning. This is Daily Brief. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is being actively analyzed by American and Israeli military experts at this very moment. Let's start with the weapon itself, because understanding what Iran actually deployed matters more than the political theater currently playing out in Jerusalem and Washington. The missile is designated Fatah 2, which translates to Conqueror 2 in English. This is the second generation of Iran's hypersonic program, and it represents a qualitative leap beyond anything Iran has fielded before. The missile is 5 meters in length with a launch weight of approximately 4,200 kilograms. To put that in perspective, that is smaller and lighter than most of Iran's medium-range ballistic missiles, which means it can be launched from mobile platforms that are significantly harder to track and target. The warhead carries a 650-kilogram high-explosive payload designed for precision strikes against hardened targets. But the warhead is not what makes this weapon revolutionary. What makes it revolutionary is the hypersonic glide vehicle that delivers that warhead. According to reporting by multiple defense publications and confirmed by open source intelligence analysts who have been tracking Iran's missile program for the past 18 months, the Fatah 2 reaches speeds exceeding Mach 12 during its terminal phase. That is over 14,700 kilometers per hour. That is approximately 4 kilometers per second. At that velocity, the missile completes the final descent from 40 kilometers altitude to ground impact in under 10 seconds. The Iron Dome system, which was designed to intercept subsonic rockets and artillery shells, requires a minimum of 15 seconds to complete the detection to engagement sequence against a high-speed threat. The math is not complicated. The Iron Dome never had a chance. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing you are not getting this level of analysis anywhere else. Now let's talk about what Israel actually built and why it cannot counter this threat. Announcement number 1, the Iron Dome was never designed to intercept hypersonic threats. And this one matters more than anything else because the entire narrative framework that Western media is using to discuss this strike is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of what the Iron Dome can and cannot do. The Iron Dome is a point defense system optimized for short-range threats. It was designed in the mid-2000s to counter Qassam rockets fired from Gaza and Katyusha rockets fired from southern Lebanon. These are unguided munitions with predictable ballistic trajectories traveling at subsonic speeds. The Iron Dome intercepts them by calculating their trajectory, launching a Tamir interceptor missile, and using proximity-fused fragmentation warheads to destroy the incoming threat. The system works exceptionally well against the threats it was designed to counter. It has demonstrated intercept rates exceeding 90% against rockets and artillery shells. But a hypersonic glide vehicle is not a rocket. It is not following a predictable ballistic arc. It is maneuvering during flight. The Fatah 2 uses what defense analysts call a pull-up maneuver during its terminal phase. After the missile completes its boost phase and reaches maximum velocity, the hypersonic glide vehicle separates and begins its descent. But instead of diving straight toward the target like a traditional ballistic missile, the glide vehicle pulls up, levels off at approximately 40 kilometers altitude, and then executes a steep dive toward the target while performing lateral maneuvers to defeat tracking systems. According to technical assessments published by the Missile Defense Advocacy Alliance and confirmed by statements from Israeli defense officials speaking on background to multiple journalists, the Iron Dome radar systems detected the inbound threat approximately 30 seconds before impact. That detection triggered an automatic engagement protocol. Multiple Tamir interceptors were launched. None of them came close to intercepting the target because by the time the interceptors reached the projected intercept point, the hypersonic glide vehicle had already maneuvered away from that position and was completing its terminal dive. The Israeli Defense Forces currently operate 10 Iron Dome batteries positioned around major population centers and strategic infrastructure. That number matters because even if Israel deploys every battery in its inventory, none of them possess the radar discrimination capability or the interceptor velocity required to engage a Mach 12 maneuvering target. The Iron Dome is designed to intercept threats traveling at speeds up to Mach 2. Druhi, asking it to intercept a Mach 12 hypersonic glide vehicle is like asking a police officer with a handgun to shoot down a fighter jet. Received. That is announcement number one. Announcement number two. This attack was a demonstration strike, not a military operation. This is the part that Israeli intelligence has confirmed to multiple Western governments. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes and where the strategic implications become impossible to ignore. The target that Iran struck at 2:47 a.m. was not a population center. It was not a hospital or a school or a residential neighborhood. It was a Mossad signals intelligence facility located 18 kilometers northeast of Tel Aviv, in an area that Israeli censors prohibit journalists from reporting on by name. According to reporting by Israeli investigative journalists and confirmed by satellite imagery analysis conducted by independent verification teams, the strike hit the building's central server room with a circular error probability of less than 3 meters. That means Iran placed a 650 kilogram warhead through the roof of a specific room inside a specific building from a launch point approximately 1,100 kilometers away. That is not a terror attack. That is surgical precision. The facility that was struck houses electronic intelligence gathering equipment used to monitor Iranian military communications and track Iranian nuclear program personnel. It is one of several such facilities that Israel operates throughout the country as part of its strategic intelligence collection network. The building itself is unmarked and located in what appears to civilian observers as an industrial park. Iran selected this target deliberately to send a message that could not be misinterpreted. The message is this: we can hit anything you value anywhere in your territory with a weapon system you cannot defend against, and we can do it with precision that demonstrates we are not throwing missiles randomly in your direction hoping something lands. We are selecting targets based on intelligence, programming coordinates into guidance systems, and delivering effects exactly where we intend them. Think carefully about what this represents. When Iran launches a demonstration strike using a hypersonic weapon against a target that most Israeli citizens did not know existed and hits that target with precision measured in meters rather than kilometers, that is not an act of desperation. That is not a propaganda video meant for domestic consumption. That is a capability demonstration directed at decision makers in Jerusalem and Washington who understand exactly what they just witnessed. Announcement number three, and this one almost nobody in the mainstream media is connecting correctly. The United States cannot defend Israel against this threat either. The terminal phase velocity of the Fatah-2 exceeds the engagement envelope of every air defense system currently deployed in the Middle East. The Patriot PAC-3 system, which the United States has deployed in multiple countries throughout the region, can theoretically intercept ballistic missiles traveling at speeds up to Mach 5. The Fatah-2 terminal phase velocity is Mach 12. The THAAD system, which is designed specifically for high-altitude ballistic missile defense, can engage targets at altitudes up to 150 kilometers and velocities up to Mach 8. Druhi. The Fatah-2 completes its terminal maneuvers at 40 kilometers altitude, traveling at Mach 12. According to Defense News and confirmed by statements from multiple American defense officials speaking on background, the United States currently has no operational system capable of reliably intercepting hypersonic threats. The programs that were supposed to deliver this capability, Glide Phase Interceptor and the NGI Next Generation Interceptor, are both years behind schedule and billions of dollars over budget. Neither system is expected to achieve initial operational capability before 2029 at the earliest. The reason these programs are struggling is the same reason that no country has successfully fielded a hypersonic defense system. The physics are extraordinarily difficult. A hypersonic target traveling at Mach 12 covers 4 kilometers every second. The radar systems need to detect the target, calculate its trajectory, predict where it will be 10 to 15 seconds in the future, while accounting for potential maneuvers, launch an interceptor, guide that interceptor to the predicted intercept point, and execute a kinetic kill against the target the size of a small car moving faster than anything the system was designed to track. Even with perfect sensor data and flawless execution, the margins for error are measured in fractions of a second. Israel knows this. The United States knows this. And now, after this morning's strike, Iran knows that they know. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the headlines, because there are two stories playing out simultaneously, and the mainstream media is only covering one of them. The first story is the one you are seeing on CNN and BBC and Sky News. Condemnations from Western capitals, statements about defending Israel's right to exist, promises of ironclad support and unwavering commitment. That story is theater. The second story is the one being discussed in classified briefings in Washington and London and Paris. That story is about what happens when a regional power that Western analysts dismissed as technologically inferior demonstrates a capability that the United States itself does not possess. That story is about the collapse of deterrence frameworks that have governed Middle Eastern security architecture for the past 3 decades. That story is about what Israel does next when the fundamental assumption underlying its entire strategic doctrine, that it possesses qualitative military superiority that cannot be challenged, has just been proven false. The Israeli War Cabinet met for 6 hours this morning. According to Israeli journalists citing sources present in that meeting, the discussion was not about immediate retaliation. The discussion was about whether Israel's existing defense posture is viable in a strategic environment where Iran can strike any target in Israeli territory with weapons that Israeli defenses cannot intercept. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant reportedly told the cabinet that Israel faces what he called a strategic dilemma without good options. If Israel retaliates against Iranian nuclear facilities or leadership targets, Iran can respond with additional hypersonic strikes against Israeli infrastructure that Israel cannot defend. If Israel does not retaliate, it signals to its neighbors and adversaries that it can be attacked with impunity as long as the attacker possesses weapons that overwhelm Israeli defenses. Think carefully about what this represents. When the United States conducts a military operation and its oldest regional ally concludes that it cannot defend against the adversary's response, that is not ambiguity. That is not diplomatic nuance. That is a verdict on the limits of American military technology and the changing balance of power in a region that American strategy has treated as a given for the past 40 years. If you own investments in defense contractors, if you have 401k exposure to companies building missile defense systems, what is happening in the Middle East is not a foreign policy story. It is a market story about which technologies work and which technologies just failed their most important test in front of the entire world. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it repeats, the outcome is the same. The Maginot Line. France spent enormous sums building fortifications designed to defend against the German army using the tactics of World War I. Germany went around the fortifications and conquered France in 6 weeks. Britain spent centuries building the world's dominant surface navy. Germany built submarines. Britain lost 2,600 merchant ships and nearly starved before America entered the war. The pattern is exact. Military establishments invest in the defenses designed to counter the last war's threats. Adversaries develop new weapons that make those defenses obsolete. The side that adapts wins. The side that continues investing in obsolete systems loses. Israel and the United States just spent 20 years and tens of billions of dollars building layered air defense systems designed to intercept ballistic missiles following predictable trajectories. Iran spent a fraction of that sum developing hypersonic weapons that make those defenses irrelevant. The parallel is exact. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths, because there is no honest middle ground here. Path 1, Israel concludes that it cannot tolerate the strategic vulnerability created by Iranian hypersonic capabilities and conducts a massive strike campaign against Iran's missile production facilities, research installations, and potentially its nuclear program. Iran responds with additional hypersonic strikes against Israeli critical infrastructure. The exchange escalates into a full regional war that draws in the United States, Hezbollah, Syria, and potentially other regional actors. Oil prices spike above $150 per barrel. Global recession follows. This path is possible. I assess the probability at 30 to 35%. Path 2, Israel and the United States conclude that military options are too risky and pursue a diplomatic framework aimed at limiting Iran's hypersonic arsenal through negotiations. Iran demands concessions on sanctions, nuclear program restrictions, and regional influence in exchange for accepting limits on hypersonic deployments. The United States agrees to terms that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago because the strategic calculus has fundamentally changed. Israel accepts a new regional security architecture where it no longer possesses unchallenged military superiority. This path represents a complete restructuring of Middle Eastern power dynamics. I assess the probability at 40 to 45%. Path 3, neither side wants immediate escalation, but neither side backs down. Israel implements economic and covert action campaigns against Iranian missile production capabilities. Iran continues developing and demonstrating increasingly sophisticated hypersonic systems. Both sides prepare for eventual conflict while managing tensions below the threshold of open war. This is the slow burn scenario where every few months there is another demonstration strike or another covert operation, and the region exists in permanent crisis without resolution. I assess the probability at 25 to 30%. I think we are closer to path 2 than the headlines suggest. The silence from Washington is not hesitation. It is recognition that the military balance has shifted in ways that make the old playbook obsolete. But Iran has demonstrated restraint in target selection, and that restraint is a signal that they prefer deterrence over destruction. If that calculation changes, we move rapidly toward path 1. Here are the questions I want you to take away. Can Israel develop a credible defense against hypersonic weapons before Iran deploys them at scale? Will the United States deploy its own hypersonic capabilities to the region to restore deterrence balance? Can diplomacy prevent the next demonstration strike from hitting something that triggers automatic escalation? Tell me in the comments what you think Israel does next. Tell me if you think we are on path 1, path 2, or path 3. We will keep tracking every development in Tehran, Jerusalem, and Washington. That is what Daily Brief does every single day. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone in your network who is trying to understand what this strike actually means and why the conventional explanations are missing the entire strategic picture. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, and we will see you in the next analysis.